All right, changing strings, part 2 of Guitar Foundations. This is for acoustic guitars. Hey, I'm Nate Savage. Welcome to Guitar Foundations. This video for it. This is my wife's Taylor GS Mini. It needs a string change, so we're gonna do that. I went through all of the details of different strings for electric guitars. Bam! But I wanted to make sure to do everything again here in case you skipped that one because you play acoustic. The first thing I want to start out with is the 4 main tips if you're new to changing strings. And if you are, don't be scared of changing strings. The worst thing you can do, if you're careful, is just break a string. You know, put some safety goggles on if you're scared of putting it out or something like that. But I think the worst thing that's ever happened to me is it's poked me in the hand or something like that. Anyways, first off, use a string winder. It is the handiest tool and it will make your life so much easier. Don't go for one of the cheap ones either. Go for one of the nicer ones. I've had this Planet Waves one with the little clipper on the end for the loose end of the string for like 15 years, man. And it's just great. It makes my life a lot easier. Number 2, and we'll go over all of these in more detail as we change the strings on this guitar, but make sure you put the string on the exact same way you took it off. So if you take this low E string off and the string was coming around this side of the post, make sure when you put the new string on, you take it off and put it on the exact same way with the E string coming around this side of the post and not this side. Number 3, put at least 2 wraps of string around each of the tuning pegs here. That's going to ensure that they won't slip and they're stable. I'll get into this more later too, but make sure that the first wrap goes above the loose end of the string and all the subsequent wraps go below the loose end of the string. We'll get that technique. That's one of the more important parts of changing the strings. And if you get that right, pretty much everything else will fall into place. Number 4, once you have the string on, make sure to stretch it out and seat it a little bit so it kind of settles into place and is as stable as possible. One thing that I should mention in this video is how to tell when you need to change your strings. There are a few ways. The first way is how do they sound? Do they sound nice and bright and clear, or do they sound kind of dull and thuddy? If they sound dull and thuddy, it's time to change your strings. The second way you can tell you need to change your strings is by how they look. If they look nice and shiny and they don't look all corroded, then you're good to go. You probably don't need to change your strings. If they look really rusty and gunky, go ahead and give them a change. The last way is by how they smell. If they smell really tarnished and corroded, then go ahead and change them, get them off of there and put some new ones on. A lot of people, it varies for a lot of people. Some people like me, if I'm playing the same guitar all week long, I could change strings every week or two. My friend Sam, he could keep the same strings on his guitar and his body chemistry is way different. He could change strings once every 2 or 3 months. All right, so let's get these strings off. Actually, let's talk about guitar strings, acoustic guitar strings first. Typically, an acoustic guitar is going to come with 12 gauge strings. That's probably, I don't know, 70 or 80% of guitars. Some will have custom lights, what they call custom lights, or 11s. Some will have what I have here, 13 gauge or medium strings. Now, all the gauge of a guitar string is, it's a measurement of the thinnest or high E string. So it's how thick that string is in thousandths of an inch. This guitar takes 13s or 13 gauge strings because it's a shorter scale. But most acoustic guitars take 12 gauge strings. So if you don't know what to get, it's probably a safe bet to go 12s. Now, as far as the type of strings or the metal, particular metal that strings are made of, there are 2 basic types for acoustic guitar strings. The first is phosphor bronze, which I have here, and they're a little bit more golden or reddish in color on the lower strings. And then you have 80-20 bronze, which are more golden in color. And 80-20 bronze get a little bit brighter, kind of a strummier sound, while phosphor bronze get a little bit warmer and airier of a sound, which I really like for finger picking. The only other variable on acoustic strings that you really need to be aware of is coated strings. Coated strings cost about twice as much, but they last 2 or 3 times as long because they have a coating on them that keeps them from oxidizing as quickly, and they stay brighter longer and they sound good longer. So it's up to you if you don't mind changing strings very often or pretty often, or if your body chemistry just doesn't corrode strings very quickly, or if you live in a drier climate, then you might be good with just regular non-coated strings. If you have really bad body chemistry or if you live in a really humid climate, you might want to get coated strings. All right, so let's get these off. What you can do is just loosen, I'll show you a couple ways to do this. Just loosen the string all the way until you can get it off of the tuning peg down here. Take it off. And a hidden tool on your string clipper is a little notch right here on the end that is used to get these little pegs out of the saddle, or out of the bridge right here. So there you go. Usually they come out easier than that, so I made that look way harder than it should have. But once you have that out, you just take this off, throw it aside. And the way that I generally like to do this, just because it's faster to me, is check this out. I'll loosen each one of the strings just a little bit. And you can do this with a winder or not. And then I just end up cutting them all just like this. And you might, this can be a little bit more dangerous, but I do it all the time. Especially if you're wearing glasses and nothing can hit you in the face. But then, to take all the pegs out, try not to lose them. And as you do this, you can just pull these guys out. Okay, and then over here on this end, just take the loose ends of the string off. And I'm making a mess of this right now just because I'm trying to be as efficient as possible for the video, but you want to consolidate these so they don't, you know, land on the floor somewhere, because they will fight your foot. I guarantee you they will. Or your wife's foot, which is even worse. When you have the strings off, it's a great time to just, you know, clean any dust or anything that collects under here. You can also wipe your fretboard down if you have any fretboard conditioner that you want to put on this. Now's a great time for that. Get the peg head, because dust collects in there too. And that's pretty much it. If you don't know what kind of cleaner to use, like Dunlop or D'Addario make some great generic just pump cleaners that basically just help get any smudges or dust off. That's a great place to start. And if you have ebony, you'll want to use some kind of linseed oil or some kind of special fretboard conditioner for that. If you have rosewood, you can just do regular lemon oil that's made for guitar fretboards. Okay, that open. And D'Addario strings, the cool thing about them is they're color coded, so you know exactly which string is which and where to put them. You can also tell by the thickness of each string, so it's not a big deal. But you know, you may be wondering, what brand should I get? Any brand is good that you can buy at a reputable guitar store or on sweetwater.com or whatever, wherever you're getting strings. They're all good. It's just going to be a matter of personal preference. So what I do here, and there are a lot, you can do these all at once or you can do them one at a time. What you do is put the ball end into the hole. Make sure, again, you take it off or put it on the exact same way you took it off. So low E goes all the way on this side, and then put the ball end down, and then put the pin in with the groove lining up with the string. Push it all the way down and then pull it up. And what I do is I put my finger under here to make sure that the ball end of the string is hitting the top or the underside of the soundboard. So it's a really good, it's pressured in there so it's not going to move. I'll show you what that looks like here with these strings. So you'll want it, the string shouldn't be like this on the underside of the guitar. Well, I guess I'll show you here. You should have that string pulled up all the way as far as you can, as close to the top of the guitar as you can. So not like this, but like this underneath. That's the way it'll be sitting. So string in, pin in, pull up, double check underneath to make sure it's as flush as possible. And I'd like to put all 6 in. You could do one at a time if you like, doesn't matter. Same thing, in, and then pull up, check it. Same thing, in, pull up, double check. And a lot of people don't know, if you own a GS Mini, these are great guitars if you're a smaller person. Don't know that they come with 13s. That's their standard setup. I was a little bit surprised to hear that too, but it makes sense since it's shorter scale. It makes 13s end up feeling a lot like 12s. Okay, so I feel that one's not seated all the way up, all the way flush, as flush as it can get. So what I'm doing is I'm redoing it, putting it back in, and then pushing up on it from the inside, and that's good to go. So you want to push down and pull up at the same time. Push down on the pin, pull up on the string to make sure it's seated as well as possible, or as good as it can be. It always looks like an alien to me. Okay, so back down here to this end of the guitar, what you do is you feed your low E string through this peg. And what you want to do is get enough slack to where you can have at least two wraps of string around the post. And for me, that's about 4 inches from the top of the string to the fretboard, something like that, right there. And then here's the key to changing strings quickly and being successful at it. You have to put downward pressure with your finger right here Actually, I got ahead of myself. Let me show you the method that I like to use to start with. So if you remember, I said that you have to put the first wrap around the top of the loose end of the string, all subsequent wraps around the bottom end of the string. So what we're gonna do, a really good way to gauge if you have enough string slack, is to manually wrap the first wrap around the top end of the string just like this, and then pull it while holding it in place, okay? So you got your first wrap around, but here's the part where I stopped myself. Here is the key to changing strings successfully and getting good at it. You have to have downward pressure with your index finger, but you also have to have pressure on the string pulling up like this. If you can do that and just start cranking down here, well, first of all, kink the loose end of the string up so it's coming straight up, and then just grab your string winder and start cranking. And all the subsequent wraps will go under the underside of the loose end of the string, which is exactly what you want because it pinches it, gets it in a bind, and keeps it more stable. And then just maintain that downward pressure with your index finger while pulling up on the string. And you'll see that bridge pin just popped out a little bit. I had to push it back in. That's pretty common. Sometimes that happens. Just be aware of that. So. And it may take you a long time to change your strings the first time. That's pretty normal, don't worry about it. I can change strings in maybe 6 or 7 minutes, but the first time I changed strings, it took me probably half an hour, 45 minutes, just because I didn't know what I was doing. That's pretty normal. You'll get better at it. Okay, once you have the string on there, just stretch it a little bit, and you want to push down on this peg as you do it, just to make sure it's seated right. And then just tune it up to pitch, get it close. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then just do the same thing for the next string. So through. Let's see, there it is. Again, leave about 4 inches of slack or however much you need to get that first initial wrap around the top part of the string manually. Just wrap around like that and then bend this loose end up. Downward pressure with your finger, upward pressure with your other 3 fingers, and then just start cranking. My wife is going to thank me for this. Actually, the reason I'm changing these strings is because we have some people contacted us and asked us to do a couple of not music videos, but performance videos. And we wanted to do it with 2 acoustic guitars, but I was like, I'm not doing a video with those nasty strings on. I want you to sound as good as possible, so I'll change your strings for you. I just went to the music store, and because of this virus thing, the COVID thing, they're doing window pickups. Like you call in your order. I was sitting there in the parking lot, called in my order, and they brought it out to me. They had my card on account, so I just picked it up. It's pretty cool. Okay, next string. Okay. Seat it. And we are halfway done. Probably more than halfway done because taking the strings off counts too. Okay, same thing. Make sure again, you want to come off on an acoustic guitar. Most of them have 3 pegs on each side to come off the inside of the strings, not the outside. I've seen people make that mistake before. Okay, 4 inches or so. Come around the inside. First manual wrap over the top of the loose end of the string. Kink it up. And this is where it gets awkward on camera because I have to keep this guitar in the same position. So I have downward pressure with my fingers, upward pressure with my thumb, and then start cranking. And on the higher strings that aren't wound, that are just, regular plain steel, what I like to do is put about 3 wraps around just because they can tend to slip more. First wrap around the top manually, still bend it up, downward pressure, and then just crank. You get the idea. I'm gonna turn it around, make this easier on myself. So like this is what I would normally do if I wasn't filming this, but I am. And again, I'm getting at least probably 3 wraps on this. So it's probably gonna be more like 4 from the way it's feeling, but that's good. You don't want too much though, because things can kind of get clumpy and lay over each other, and it can make the string unstable. Okay, there's that one. And the last one, I am the last one. Okay, let's see. Okay, first one manually over the top, pick it up. And this one will be a little bit easier because this guitar peg head is elevated like this. So I can get that downward pressure. And they do make things that you can rest your guitar neck on to make this process a lot easier, but I didn't want to dig through my bin that I have because I never use it. I usually do this on my lap, actually. I usually change strings on my lap, so it makes things pretty quick. Okay, all 6 strings on. Now that you have them on, you need to get it up to pitch, or roughly up to pitch. And then stretch them out again, seat them a little bit, just to make sure that nothing's gonna slip or clunk down here at this end or here at this end. And then once you stretch them out, you're probably gonna need to do this whole process again because they'll be a little bit flat. And then that's not it, I'm lying. Now you need to do something with all these loose ends of the strings over here. Normally you can either just clip them. Most good string winders come with clippers on them, so you can do that. Just get as close to the peg head as possible, or the tuning peg as possible. But that leaves a sharp end. What I like to do, and the reason I like this method of changing strings with the first end over the top and the next, or the first wrap over the top of the loose end of the string and the next subsequent wraps over under the bottom, is watch, you can just bend it back and forth because the string's in a bind and just break it off like that. And it leaves you with, well, usually leaves you with no sharp end. Sometimes it gets a little bitty thing, but this one, like, there's no sharp end at all. And you don't need to worry about carrying clippers around, nothing like that. Once you reach this point, I would recommend stretching these or seating these out again, and then just tuning them up to tune with a tuner. And then once you do that, it's gonna take a while, maybe a couple hours, maybe a day, for the strings to really get seated and quote unquote stretch. But just be aware that you're gonna have to keep retuning this for at least a little bit, depending on how much you play it right away. But they will sink in, and then you'll have fresh strings on your guitar. Here are your assignments for this lesson. Number 1, buy a string winder and some extra sets of strings. Just run out to your local music store or online. Either way, make sure to have them on hand, and that string winder will make your life a lot easier too. Assignment number 2 is actually change your strings. It's great practice for you, and jumping into it sooner rather than later will make you get a lot better at it a lot faster. If you have any questions about this process, leave a comment here below or email me, Nate@NateSavage, and head over to natesavage.com if you want to pick up a copy of the ebook Guitar Foundations, and I will see you there.